Q Service Sports Hour. We're live here at the Bills game.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome into Hendricks Hall here in the WNYF studios. This is Kevin Syracuse with Josh Schmidt. As we have concluded the NHL trade deadline, a huge day. Actually, Josh was just telling me that this was the busiest trade deadline.
Yep, 32 transactions, the busiest one in NHL history.
And the Sabres did have a couple of their own. We were wondering what they were going to do.
Yeah.
I like their trades. Do you, Josh?
We'll get to it. I have some explaining.
Okay. So, yeah, we will get to it. First, for the Fredonia State College sports. So the men's hockey team season came to an end Saturday night in Oswego as they lost to the Lakers 4-1. The Blue Devils defeated the Cortland Red Dragons Friday night in Cortland 3-2 thanks to Chandler Judd's go-ahead goal late in the second period, which proved to be the game-winning goal as well as his first career goal. The win gave Fredonia a win-and-in situation, but they were unable to take down the number 2 seeded team in the SUNYAC. The Blue Devils finished with an overall record of 7-11-7 and a conference record of 4-9-3. 7 players will be graduating this spring. Captains Charlie Manley and Tommy Martin, Anton Rosen, Max Blitz, Tyler Ryder, Jacob Haynes, and Hugo Gamache. The men's and women's basketball seasons also came to an end on Saturday as they both fell to Buff State in another episode of the Battle by the Lake series. The women lost 96-56, while the men lost 92-87. Katie Pitchford led the women with 13 points, while Dada Bryan led the men with 29 points. Meanwhile, Liv LeBaron had 41 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 steals, while Jordan Christopher had 30 points and 10 rebounds for the Bengals. The women finished with a 9-16 overall record, a 5-13 conference record, and will be losing 2 players due to graduation, Anna Cha-Cha and Trisha Lane. The men finish 8-17 overall, 4-13 in the SUNYAC, and will be graduating 4 seniors: Colden George, Daquan Smith, Tyler Roberts, and Musa Samasa. So, Josh, an unfortunate end to the hockey team season. A huge win Friday night.
Right.
And it was close Saturday against the Lakers, but in the end, just not enough.
Yeah, I thought they were going to do it, but it's a shame to see it end the way it did, especially with the seniors they had on that team. I mean, guys like Jacob Haynes and Tommy Martin deserve a little bit more than that, I think, but it's just how the cookie crumbles, and you got next year for the guys that are coming back.
And Haynes finishes with 97 career points. So
yeah, one heck of a college career for a D3 guy.
So congrats to all of those 7 seniors on great careers. Unfortunately, they won't be, playing this weekend in the playoffs, but still great careers. Mm-hmm. So now to the NHL. Today, trade deadline. Josh and I were on our phones all day.
Let me put it this way. I tweeted out this morning at, I think, 9 o'clock this morning, it's Christmas Day 2.0. And that's what it is for me every year. I look forward to the trade deadline every single year. It's like Christmas. You get all these deals. Even if your team doesn't make any deals, you see all these movements around the league. And this year was one of the most active trade deadlines. It was the most active trade deadline in NHL history, and it was the second most players moved. There was 55 different players moved today, and I don't know how many picks with how many stupid conditions. We've seen so many crazy conditions put on picks today. It's wild. But let's dive right into it with some of the first trades of the day.
So actually, I want to go back to yesterday.
Oh right, yeah, that was quite the trade.
Yeah, so Ilya Kovalchuk got sent from Montreal to Washington for a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah,
so what do you think about this?
This is a good pickup by by Washington, because Kovalchuk, despite the fact that he is older and he's been bounced around the league in the past year or two. He had 22 points in 13 points in 22 games with Montreal when he first got there. And I mean, Kovalchuk and Ovechkin have chemistry. We know that. And I think that these two together would work very well. I think Kovalchuk will work well on their second line as well with guys like Backstrom. But I think that it's a good move by Washington. I mean, it's not. I don't think they'll have him for too long. They have him at half retained salary. He was only making $700,000 at league minimum, so they're only paying him $350,000. But what's funny is Kovalchuk is on the books for 4 different NHL teams. New Jersey's still paying him. LA is still paying him. Montreal now is still paying him, and Washington is paying him now too. So he's getting paid by 4 different NHL teams at this point, and he hasn't played for New Jersey in I think 5 years. So
they're still paying him
because of his contract. Because he went to the KHL, he opted out of his contract.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So, but I think it's a great pickup by Washington. I mean, you get a veteran player on short term, so it's good for them.
And quick note, Ovechkin did score his 700th goal.
Right.
That was not last night, right? Was it Saturday?
No, it was 2 nights ago, yeah. Ovechkin finally got a 700th goal, and his wife is pregnant again. So congratulations, Ovi. You're having one heck of a week.
Yeah, really. So today's first trade saw the Oilers acquiring Mike Green, a defenseman from Detroit, for Kyle Brodziak and a conditional 4th-round pick.
Yeah, so I mean, this is more of a low-level deal. This was the first deal of the trade deadline. I was laying in bed at about 12:30 last night when it came through. So the first deal of the trade deadline. Mike Green, I mean, he's a defensive helper for Edmonton. Edmonton's struggling defensively. They just got Connor McDavid back from injury. They're still looking to make a good playoff push here. They're in a playoff spot, so they're trying to hold on. Kyle Brodziak, he'll be good for the Red Wings for a little while. I mean, he's a household name in Edmonton, but he's on the IR right now, so he can't help Detroit right now. But Detroit, as we know, stinks. But Detroit is at the end of their season. They've been eliminated from the playoffs. They're just trying to pick up draft picks, and I think this 4th-rounder is going to help them out there. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a low-value trade in some ways, but in other ways for Detroit, that draft pick is going to help them out in their rebuild because now they have 13 draft picks in this coming draft. I think either it's 13 or 12, one of the two, but they have a lot.
Yeah, Detroit's definitely
in rebuild mode.
Yeah.
Full rebuild mode.
Well, I mean, technically they are still considered Hockey Town, right? I mean, they're called that, but they haven't.
Let's
been
think
that.
about the real hockey town here.
Hockey heaven, Buffalo.
Hockey heaven. That's where every player goes to die.
But yeah, Detroit. Obviously, they were good for decades, and the last few years they've just been terrible.
Yep.
So we'll see if they can get good again.
Yeah, I mean they got Steve Yzerman now, so I think Steve Yzerman could turn dirt into a good hockey team, and that's basically what the Red Wings are right now. No offense, Red Wings fans. But moving on, the Colorado Avalanche made a move for Vladislav Nemestikov from the Ottawa Senators for a 4th-rounder. This is more of a move where Nemestikov is a UFA at the end of the season. He is a good point producer for Ottawa. He's on a tank team, so you can never really tell. His numbers are going to be skewed a little bit because when you're on a tank team, you could be a 4th-line player but be putting up first-line numbers. But with Colorado losing Mikko Rantanen to a very, very dirty hit from Eric Cernak, I can't believe that man didn't get a suspension from that or any other hit he's had in the last 2 weeks. But this will help out Colorado's secondary scoring with Rantanen now being out. Colorado's trying to hold on to a playoff spot. So I think this is a good move by them.
Yeah, the Senators, they were sellers this year, obviously, as they were.
Well, we'll get to that in the
bottom
next
of
trade.
the standings. Yeah. So,
but
that was the next trade as they sent Jean-Gabriel Pageau to the Islanders for a 1st-round pick, a 2nd-round pick, and a 3rd-round pick.
Right. So the picks here, it's a conditional 1st-rounder. The conditions on the 1st-rounder are the pick will shift to a 2021 1st-rounder if the Islanders pick this year turns into a top 3 draft pick, which it won't because the Islanders are projected to be in the playoffs or not in the top 3 because how the draft lottery works, if you're not in the playoffs, you're guaranteed a 16 pick or higher. So if the Islanders completely tank in these last 20 games here, maybe it becomes a top 3 pick. And if that's the case, they get this year's pick, and Ottawa will get next year's pick. But I don't see that being the case in this one. I think the Islanders are going to make the playoffs, and I think that this pick will go to Ottawa for their third first-round pick of the year. They'll have 3 first-round picks in this year's draft. They'll have 4 second-round picks, and the third pick that they got in this trade is a 2022 third-round pick, and the condition on that is they only get this third-round pick if the Islanders win the Stanley Cup. That is the weirdest condition I've ever seen. I mean, it makes sense, but the Islanders, if they win the Stanley Cup, Ottawa will get a third-round pick for them. But the Senators this year have 15 draft picks in the first round. 15 of them, and 7 of them coming in the first 2 rounds.
Wait.
Yeah.
You said 15 picks?
7 of those picks are in the first 2 rounds.
Wow.
Yeah, 3 first-rounders, 4 second-rounders. It's crazy. Ottawa will be scary good in 3 years, and I'm terrified.
Well, apparently they're scary good against the Sabres because the Sabres
Don't even go there yet.
Now, another trade we had, now this is before any of the news broke out from the Sabres acquisitions today, so a lot of fans were mad about this one, including myself.
Right.
Vincent Trocheck.
I was also very mad. I threw my phone at a wall.
So Trocheck went to Carolina for 4 players in return to the Panthers. We saw 3 forwards, Erik Haula, Lucas Wallmark,
and
how do you say this?
Eetu
Luostarinen.
And then Chase Prisky, a defensive prospect. The last 2 are prospects. The other 2, Haula and Wallmark, I mean, Wallmark is he's more of an AHL guy, but Haula is definitely like your third or maybe even second line center. But Trocheck is the real moneymaker in this deal because Trocheck is a certified second line center. The Sabres were, I really wanted the Sabres to go after Trocheck. We all did. I mean, Sabres Twitter blew up when we didn't get him. I mean, Haula would have been, I would have liked Haula as a second option, but then we see both of them go in the same trade deal. So you lose both options there. You wonder, is this GM, I honestly tweeted out, I said, wow, way to go. You just ruined our trade deadline for this year because who else are we going to go for? I mean, obviously that changed as we made 2 trades later in the day, but I think a lot of people thought we were down and out after this trade happened, and it made sense to think that, but besides the point, this is a great trade for Carolina. Trocheck is like I said, he's a certified second line center in the NHL. And Florida, I mean, they get good in return as well. They get depth forward in Haula, and they get possibilities and prospects in the other 3. But, I mean, we'll have to see how that one pans out, but I definitely think Trocheck will be a good player for the Hurricanes for the rest of the season. Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see how that trade pans out for each team because both of those teams, the Sabres are chasing for the wild card.
Right, and that's why I also think, that's why I also think Trocheck didn't go to Buffalo because Florida's not going to want to. We are 4 points behind Florida right now, battling for that last Atlantic spot with them and Toronto. So that's why I think you didn't see Trocheck coming to Buffalo, unless it was like for like Rasmus Ristolainen and another key piece.
Well, I mean, well, true, yeah, because Carolina and Florida are just battling for the wild card, so it's not like.
Well, Florida's battling for the Atlantic, the 3rd spot in the Atlantic in the division with us in Toronto.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's not the wild card though. That's completely different than the wild card.
No, I'm saying like. Because they still made the trade, and they're still competing in the same conference.
Right. So they're still competing technically, but they're not competing head-to-head like us and Florida are.
So, yeah, you're saying there's more of that competition between Buffalo and Florida than Florida
because they're not going to want to help us out as much.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a good point. So maybe that was the reason.
Right.
Another team that I think benefited from this, Pittsburgh, they got Patrick Marleau from San Jose for a 3rd-round pick.
And the condition on that one is, again, if Pittsburgh wins the Stanley Cup, San Jose gets the 3rd rounder. I don't know who comes up with these conditions, but it's fantastic. Patrick Marleau, I mean, he came into San Jose in the beginning of the season. They signed him to a league minimum contract. In his first 5 games, he had 5 points. Patrick Marleau has been a main, like I said, he's kind of like Kyle Brodziak, but more of a household name in San Jose than Kyle Brodziak would be in Edmonton. But Marleau is, he's very important. He was very important to San Jose at a time, and then he went to Toronto. He was a very important piece there, and went back to San Jose. But I think he's going to help out the Penguins a lot with secondary scoring, but I feel like the Penguins are going to fall off by the end of the year. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs.
You don't?
No, because of how strong the Metro is. I think that Columbus, Philly, Carolina, I think those teams are going to, and the Islanders, I think those 3 teams are going to move up, and Pittsburgh's just going to slide. Because the tires have been spinning, and I don't think they're going to hold on. Unless they maybe clutch onto a wild card spot and have a first-round exit.
I was going to say, so you don't even think they'll get a wild card now?
I don't think so.
Really?
I don't know. I'm hoping my key scenario, or my lovely scenario here is that Pittsburgh falls to the second wild card spot and Buffalo can squeak in ahead of them into the second wild card spot. I think that something like that could happen. I think, and who knows, maybe they just hang on and Crosby just does what Sidney Crosby does and Evgeny Malkin does what Evgeny Malkin does, and that's the end of it. But time will tell, I guess, because a lot can happen in 20 games.
Well, another team in that division, the Flyers, they acquired former Sabre Derek Grant for Kyle Kruskulo and a 4th-round pick.
Yeah, so
they went to Anaheim.
2 former Sabres in a trade deal here. Derek Grant's been fantastic for Anaheim this year. He's been a 30-point scorer at 29 years old. I think he can score even more with this Flyers team. They've had scoring all over the charts here. I mean, the highest scorer you see with them is 55 points, but there are 4 guys with 55 points on their team. And then there's 6 guys with 30 to 40 points on their team. So that's good dispersion of your scoring right there. And I think Derek Grant's just going to add to that. I mean, Philly's been going on one heck of a run here. I think they can take the second spot in the Metropolitan Division before the season's over. And who knows, maybe even give Washington a run for their money and take the first spot. But I think that's a little bit more of a long shot.
Next up, now over to the West, we had Andreas Athanasiou and Ryan Kuffner going to Edmonton for Sam Gagner, a 2020 second-round pick and a 2021 second-round pick.
Yep, so Detroit, like I said, adding to their draft pool. Sam Gagner, I mean, he's got to be at least 32, but he was a very good player for Edmonton at a time, and then, I mean, injuries, end of the career kind of sort of stuff. I think Gagner is more of a locker room guy, a veteran presence kind of guy, but like I said...
He's 30.
Oh, he's 30? Okay, I thought he was a little older than that. But Detroit's just trying to add draft stock here, and I think Athanasiou for the Oilers is a very good pickup because if you have a situation where a guy like McDavid does go down, Athanasiou can at least help pad your scoring just a little bit. And there's even been talk of Athanasiou, McDavid, and Draisaitl being a line, and that line would be scary. That is a very fast line, a very good passing line, and a very good shooting line. So I think all around, this is a good deal for Edmonton.
Well, Edmonton remained busy because right after that, they acquired former Sabre Tyler Ennis from the Senators for a 5th-round pick. So again, Ottawa stockpiling those draft picks, and again, yep. Edmonton getting some more help with the forward position.
Yeah, I mean, this is another good deal by Edmonton because Tyler Ennis is another, kind of Jean-Gabriel Pageau kind of player. He is having a career year. Well, maybe not career year, but he's having a pretty good year in Ottawa. And Ottawa, like we've been saying, is a tank team, so his numbers might be inflated a little bit. But Ennis is, a good third-line guy, a fourth-line guy that could help you out, especially on Edmonton with the depth they have and the players they have. But I think Ennis will slot in nicely in their bottom 6 and help them out with secondary scoring or even like third or fourth-line scoring.
Now going back to the East, we had another trade with the Hurricanes. They acquired defenseman Sami Vatanen for, let's see.
I'm not sure how to say these ones, but they're two prospects for Carolina sends 2 prospects and a conditional 4th-rounder to New Jersey for Sami Vatanen. And the Hurricanes' main goal today was to add defensive depth, and they get this in Sami Vatanen. Sami Vatanen was on a big deal, so New Jersey retained half of Vatanen's salary, especially because Carolina is very close to the cap right now. But I think this is a good deal by Carolina. So
the 2 prospects, I'll attempt at saying these. I think Janne Kukkonen and Frederick Claesson.
Yep, I think that's pretty close.
Close enough. So those are the 2 prospects going back to New Jersey, and then the 4th-round pick. So the next one, this is where it gets real interesting.
This is a very...
I'll just let you explain this. Because
all right. So this is
the biggest part, Vegas got Robin Lehner.
Right. This is the epitome of a 3-way trade. This is mind-boggling confusing. I had to look at this for 15 minutes to even halfway understand it. So Chicago had Robin Lehner on a $5 million contract for 1 year. They trade Robin Lehner to Toronto with half the salary retained. So Chicago is still paying $2.5 million of Robin Lehner's salary. So then Robin Lehner goes to Toronto. Toronto then retains 22% of that, which is $1.1 million, and sends him to Vegas. So Vegas is paying him $1.4 million, and they send back Malcolm Subban and Slava Demin. Slava Demin goes to Chicago, but Malcolm Subban stays in Toronto. And Toronto also gets a 2020 fifth rounder. And what Chicago gets out of this is Slava Demin and a 2020 second rounder. What Vegas gets out of this is Robin Lehner and Martin Dierzakals. He's an AHL guy from Toronto. Robin Lehner obviously is going to be a backup for Vegas now because they send Malcolm Subban to Toronto. So to recap, Chicago is paying $2.5 million of Robin Lehner's contract. Slava Demin goes to Chicago, and so does this 2020 second rounder. Toronto gets a 2020 fifth rounder and Malcolm Subban, paying $1.1 million of Lehner's contract, and Vegas gets Robin Lehner and the prospect in Martins Dierzakals. So pretty confusing trade, and it actually took. I think that's why the NHL trade registry was so bogged down towards the end of the trade deadline, because there was a lot of trades coming in, and no one knew what was going on.
All right, well, just a few minutes left. We have a few more that we're going to talk about. I'm just going to read them so we can get to the Sabres.
Yep.
So the Hurricanes acquired Brady Shea from the Rangers for a 2020 first-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
The Canucks got goaltender Louis Domingue from the Devils for a goalie, Zane McIntyre. Tampa Bay got Barclay Goodrow and a third-round pick for a first-round pick and Anthony Greco to San Jose.
Deal is god-awful. Barclay Goodrow is not worth a first-round pick or Anthony Greco. I don't even know what they were thinking here. That's all I can really say about that. Tampa Bay is one of the biggest losers of today's draft or trade deadline just because of this trade. It's awful.
And finally, Chicago sent Eric Gustafsson,
yes.
Defenseman, to Calgary for a third-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
So those were the main trades. Now for the Sabres, just a couple minutes left.
Right.
So I really like what the Sabres did. So they acquired Wayne Simmons from New Jersey for a fifth-round draft pick. That's conditional. It can turn into a fourth-round pick if the Sabres make the playoffs and if Simmons plays in 10 games. Mm-hmm. And maybe they can.
The Devils also retained half of Simmons' $5 million salary cap hit. So the Sabres are only paying him $2.5 million.
So Simmons is a tough, gritty, physical player. He can score points. And this year, a little bit of a down year, but New Jersey's had a down year, so his numbers may not be
as good. But they're better than Jeff Skinner's. So
yeah.
I mean,
so 8 goals, 16 points, so 24 points for the 31-year-old, correct?
Mm-hmm. And he's only got a year. He's done at the end of the year. So if we don't like him, we can just let him go, and you really lose nothing. The other deal we made.
Wait, real quick. And reports came out that he is already open to re-signing long-term with the Sabres.
Because he had the Sabres on his no trade list. So he didn't want to come here, but then he waived that today and was traded to here today. So I think that's promising. The other trade was Connor Sheary and Evan Rodriguez to Pittsburgh for center Dominic Cahoon. Dominic Cahoon is a 24-year-old. He played his first season in the NHL last year with Chicago. 82 games, 37 points, undrafted, very good prospective center. He played 50 games in Pittsburgh this year for 27 points. I think he's going to slot in nicely in the top six, or middle six, I should say, as a second-line center or second-line right winger.
Potterill said he does like him as a winger, though, so we'll have to see where they line him up.
I would like to see him going on the wing, Reinhart coming down to the second-line center, and Simmons playing first-line right wing to give Eichel some toughness. But this is great because Connor Sheary, he did nothing. He was ineffective for Buffalo. And Evan Rodriguez wanted out of here. He was even quoted that he ran out of the building, literally. But Evan Rodriguez and Connor Sheary were both UFAs at the end of the season, so it's good to get something in return for players you thought you would just lose at the end of the season and get nothing for.
So is it great Probably not. Is it good? Yes. Is it better than what we've had? Yes.
It's better than what I expected to happen.
Yes. Yes. And so I am very happy with what Jason Botterill did. And going back to the Zach Bogosian one, that's $10 million that the Sabres shaved off.
Yep.
And
So
they
now
got players.
have $7.2 million in cap space now.
So they got players that can help now and possibly in the future. So we will take a 2-minute break. Thanks for coming on, Josh. And Dustin will come on to talk about the rest of the league and the games and all that good stuff. So stay tuned.
I'll be right back.
Hi. You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
I realized that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you judge me for having a problem. No one is going to know that I need help. I need help. I know that no one is going to judge me for having a problem. I realized that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you listen.
Oh, look, a redhead. Staring contest. You still got it. I know.
Come alive with the forest.
The dad was cute.
You were looking right at us.
Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
It's me, Artie. Come see what I collected from the Creative Galaxy in my idea box.
Transform your world.
Will you help me make art?
Before you throw it away,
Hey, I have an idea.
think outside the box.
Go be amazing!
Give your cardboard box another life. Recycle.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
And welcome back. So I was wrong due to technical difficulties. Josh is still on. And I was also wrong. It was a 4-minute commercial, not a 2-minute commercial. So happy to have Josh back with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I haven't been on in a while.
So here are the current standings. We will touch on this more at the end of the segment as to how the trades are going to affect these. But first, we want to talk about some games that have been going on in the midst of all this trade frenzy.
Yeah.
So Montreal and Washington, this happened on last Thursday. The Canadiens took this one 4-3 in overtime.
Yeah, so this is an important game for the Canadiens. Is that you can't see them on the standings here, but they're battling for that last spot in the Atlantic right here for where Toronto's at. This is an important game for them. It was a key win. They've dropped a few games since this one, so it's not as important anymore. I think they're below the Sabres in standing at this point. But, it was a good key game for them at the time to keep their playoff hopes alive, but I think playoff hopes for them are kind of diminishing. And for Washington, I mean, they're first in the Metro. Like, it's pretty much on lock for them. They're 38, 18, and 6 with 82 points. Only 2 points ahead of Pittsburgh, but as I had said before, Pittsburgh's kind of sliding off a little bit. So I think it was an important game for Montreal, but now that they've dropped the last few, it's not looking so good for them.
Now, another game that we want to highlight here, these are two teams that are battling for the wild card, the Rangers and the Hurricanes. This was on Friday night, and the Rangers took this one 5-2.
Yeah, this was a big game for the Rangers and for the Hurricanes because the Rangers, as Kevin said, are battling for the wild card spot. The Metro is a very hotly contested division this year. So far, there are 5 Metropolitan playoff teams, as you can see there. There's the 3 in the division and the 2 in the wild card spot here. But this is a good game for the Rangers to win because they're trying to overtake Carolina in the last spot. They're also trying to overtake Columbus and the Islanders. So they're trying to jump over a few teams here. But the Hurricanes got to start winning games like this because if they don't, they're going to see their playoff hopes disappear. And now with both goalies down, Reimer and Mrazek, it's going to be interesting to see how their AHL goalies fare until at least Mrazek's back because we heard his injury's not near as bad as they expected. So the Hurricanes, with their additions today and the trade deadline, I think it makes their playoff hopes a little bit better, but they got to start winning games like that against the Rangers, who aren't as good of an opponent. Sorry, Dustin, but they're not as good of an opponent. But I think it's going to be a tight finish for those two teams there.
And that was awesome what happened Saturday night. It wasn't awesome that the Hurricanes lost 2 goalies due to injury, but to have a 42-year-old emergency goalie come in and get the win against the Maple Leafs, nonetheless.
Right. Yeah,
that was awesome.
Yeah, that was great.
With how do you say David?
David Aries.
Aries. Okay. Yep. And another game with 2 teams that are battling it out for the playoffs. Philadelphia and Columbus. The Flyers took this one 4-3 in overtime.
Yeah, so the Flyers win this one. I mean, that puts them in 3rd in their division. The Blue Jackets still hang on. Oh, nope, never mind. The Blue Jackets are tied with the Hurricanes for the last spot in the wild card, but they're not in the wild card due to goal differential. So the Blue Jackets got to start winning games like this. They can't let them slip away in overtime like that. You get the pity point, but it's not going to do much for you in that case. So, but the Flyers, like I said, they've been rolling, and it's cool to see them back into it. I mean, I hate them, but it's cool to see them back into it. So it's nice to see a different team in there for once.
Now heading out west, Vancouver and Minnesota. The Wild took this one 4-3 in a shootout.
So the Wild are another team. Like, the West is literally the Wild West this year. Every team that is just outside of a wild card spot, as you can see here, these 2 teams are tied for the wild card spot, but every team below them is within 5 points of that wild card spot. So it's very hotly contested. I mean, even the Minnesota Wild, who are, I think, 6 or 7 points back, could make a push for the playoffs here. And I think this is a big win for them as Vancouver is ahead of them in the Pacific. Well, ahead in the Pacific, but the Wild are in the Central. But it still helps them out standings-wise because they could push for the wild card spot or they could push for the final spot in the Central over Dallas. But I think it's a key win there for Minnesota.
Next game, Vegas and Tampa Bay. Vegas took this one 5-3, ending Tampa's 11-game win streak.
I didn't think Tampa was going to lose. I mean, they're one of the better teams, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. And, I mean, Vegas has always been strong since they came into the league a few years ago. So This is a big win for Vegas as they're first in the Pacific now. That's key for them, especially because Edmonton's so hot with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and all these guys, and Vancouver's good with Brock Besser and Bo Horvat and Troy Stetcher and Elias Pettersson and all these guys. So it's important for Vegas to keep winning games like that against non-conference opponents, because although it's a non-conference opponent, they still need those points to take down their conference opponents.
And finally, Arizona and St. Louis, the Blues took this one 1-0.
Mm-hmm. Kind of a snore fest, but the key stat here is Arizona had 14 shots the entire game. The entire game. 1-0 they lose. St. Louis had 46 shots.
Wow.
Yeah. So Arizona had a lot. Arizona's goalie, I think it was Kemper that night, had a lot of work to do. But another one where, Arizona needs to win it. They're tied for second in the wild card. St. Louis is top of the Central, so, it's not really important for them. But, to hold that top spot down and keep that home ice advantage for the playoffs, you're going to want to do that, especially coming in trying to defend the Stanley Cup.
All right, so about a minute left until you will be officially done.
I will officially
Josh.
be done.
Unless you want to come on for NBA. No. So going back to the East now, it got real interesting for the Sabres over the last week, because they went from rock bottom to all of a sudden, hey, there's chance. There's hope again. We have a chance.
Right. Well, they're 7-3-1, or I think 7-3 in their last 10. So that's
they
important.
won 5 out of their last 6.
Yep, that's important. And with the additions of Cahoon and Simmons today, I think that's going to give them a lot more of a chance. As we said, projected lines could be something like Olofsson, Eichel, Simmons, and then Skinner, Cahoon, or Skinner, Reinhart, Cahoon. Keep the first line how it is and put Cahoon and Simmons on the second line with Skinner, and then your bottom 6 would be Johansson, VC, and Lazar. The log line. Oh my God, Kyle Okposo, Zemgus Girgensons, and Johan Larsson. Beautiful. I never ever you literally look at that and go, that's a piece of trash, but it's a beautiful piece of trash. It's the best fourth line in hockey right now. I think that if you would have broken that up today, Sabres Twitter would have exploded. But I think it's a very interesting race towards the end of the playoff, or towards the end of the season here. We're 6 points behind Toronto right now.
And we have a game in hand.
And
if tomorrow night.
If Toronto loses to Tampa tomorrow night, we'll have 2 games at hand on Toronto. So what that means is we basically have a 4-point advantage over them, even though we don't have 4 points on them. We just have the ability to get those 4 points that they did not have the ability to get.
Well, we'll see. The Sabres head out west this week, so a big week ahead for the Sabres. Actually, I think the next 10 games are all against playoff opponents. So the Sabres have been playing hot. They need to continue this. 20 games left, so the push is on.
Let's not talk about it. Let's not talk about it any more than that.
Well, we can't because we're out of time. Yep. So thanks for coming on. And Mac will come on to talk about the NBA in a couple minutes. So come right back.
I'll be right back. Hi. You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How do you not love him?
collected from the creative galaxy in my idea box.
Transform your world.
Will you help me make art?
Before you throw it away,
Hey, I have an idea.
think outside the box.
Go be amazing!
Give your cardboard box another life. Recycle.
Happy to have Mac Clune with us now for the NBA segment. Mac usually does the MLB as well as a bunch of stuff behind the scenes, like the graphics that you see. So our first time talking with Mac about the NBA. So Mac, well, first of all, who's your team again?
Knicks.
Oh, thank you. That's right. Yes.
Big Knicks fan. I'll always be a Knicks fan, unfortunately. Mets and Knicks. I didn't get the best card, but you know, that's how it goes.
Well, 2 Knicks fans here, so
yep.
I'm happy there's another one of us here because Meyer always gives me some heat for that. So, yeah, not the best stretch for the Knicks.
Yeah, no.
We'll see. But what are your thoughts on the NBA season, just in general?
Just in general, it's been an exciting season. You know, they were calling it the year of the duo initially because all these teams stacked up, and now they have all these 2 players. You know, you got the Lakers, you got the Clippers with all these superstars, the Rockets now. It's been an interesting NBA season, and the biggest storyline, I think, throughout the season, or a really big factor, has just been the removal of the Warriors, who have been this incredibly dominant team for 5 years now. So they're just completely gone in the landscape of the NBA. They're one of the worst teams, and they're like looming on the horizon, right? You're wondering, are the Warriors going to come back with more draft talent? What's going to happen? So it's been an interesting NBA season. I think my favorite part is just the idea that the whole season's up for grabs, and really anybody can take it home this year.
Yeah, I think the best way to describe this year, if I could put it in one word, would be parity.
Yeah.
There's so much more parity.
Yeah,
now.
much more parity.
Because I love how teams went from making big threes to there were only a few teams with big threes, and then they narrowed it down to, or not narrowed it down, they expanded it out to dynamic duos.
Yeah, well, we've had about like 4 years of the NBA now where you can literally just say, well, it's going to be Cleveland and Golden State.
Yeah.
And then LeBron left to the Lakers now. But it was after a while, it was, you know, you're just wondering, is there going to be another team that could potentially win the finals? So now we're in an era where there's several different contenders, and I think it's pretty exciting.
Well, one of those contenders is Milwaukee. They have a great team this year, 48-8.
Yeah.
I was saying last week.
Best record in the whole league.
Yeah, I was saying last week how it's astonishing that they are still in single-digit losses, and they are still in single-digit losses.
I feel like people don't talk about the Bucks that much. Like, am I crazy?
Yeah. Well, it's Milwaukee. It's a small market team.
I have a theory as to why people don't talk about the Bucks that much, and my theory is that because they haven't been that good in the playoffs recently, I don't think that people are taking them as seriously as they should. But I think this year might be the year that they make a jump. On the clip there, we just saw Ben Simmons actually went out with a lower back injury, so that's something to watch out for in news. See what happens.
Yeah, so they defeated Philadelphia 119-98 on Saturday, and now granted they've only had 1 or 2 games since the All-Star break, so that's why part of the reason why they're still in single-digit losses. But still, I mean, to be 48-8.
Yeah, no, I think they're
insane.
projected to win 65 games right now, but I think they could maybe make a serious run at 70. I think it's possible.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, talking about parity, they have so much parity with Giannis and Middleton.
It's a smart team when you look at it. Really, what the team is they took a generational superstar, which Giannis is, and they just surrounded him with like a lot of really good shooting and defending talent. And so far, it's worked wonders for them.
Yeah, and Eric Bledsoe, Pat Connaughton, even
the Lopez brothers.
Come on, the Lopez brothers.
I mean, their big star has been or not their big star, but their big secondary guy has been Chris Middleton, who got the max contract, and people were saying, is Chris Middleton worth it? We don't know, and I think definitely so far he's been worth it.
So we'll see if Milwaukee. I think this is a year for Milwaukee because Toronto got their way last year.
So this is your finals pick on record. Kevin says Milwaukee.
Yeah,
I like it.
Right
honestly,
now, I'm gonna take Milwaukee. I'm gonna have them in my finals right now.
Okay, I mean, you know that they were the earliest team to ever secure or clinch a playoff spot. They're with 48-8 now. They are the earliest team in the season to ever clinch a playoff spot. Yeah.
Wow.
So they were the first team to do that.
So yeah, great year for them.
Something I wanted to talk about before we move on to the next game was so I feel like we should talk about the 76ers, talk about the other team in this equation, because I've seen the comparison that the 76ers are having a very similar season to the season that the Celtics had last year. I think it's a really interesting comparison because the Celtics, people thought they were going to win 65 games last year. They're going to steamroll the league and be favorites to get into the finals. But the fit just didn't work out. They weren't able to really like gel the way that they should. And I think that's the big thing we're looking at with the 76ers here is just fit. I don't think that team fits together very well. They're just too big.
Well, it's funny you say that because they have Al Horford.
Yeah, and
the
Al Horford
Celtics had Al Horford last year.
That's true. Al Horford's a good player, but he just got benched officially. So they put him on the bench. And I don't know who they started, but it was another one of their 3 shooters. So it's, it's really crazy to see that team not living up to expectations.
Yeah, I mean, they're still, as you can see, they're in 5th place. But I think a lot of people thought they would be more like
they were
Toronto, Boston territory.
Yeah, they were predicted to be 2nd seed. So it's definitely, they're underperforming for sure.
So now for the next game, we had the Hawks and the Heat. Atlanta took this one 129-124.
Yeah. So this game, the thing I mostly want to talk about this game is just Trae Young is entering the post-All-Star break hot streak that he is known to do. He dropped 50 points in this game. It's his first time dropping 50, and did it on all jump shots, as you can expect with Trae. And, the Hawks are going on a nice little run here. They're 5-5 in their last 10. They got wins over the Mavericks, even though Luka and KP didn't play since the break. And I think that maybe the Luka and the Doncic debate can start heating up. And I wanted to ask you, who would you take right now? If you had to look at Doncic and Trae.
I don't know. That's so hard.
Yeah.
Because they're both so good and so young and so talented. I don't know.
I think I got to go.
Well, wait. Is it, if I were to start a team, are you saying would I start with Luka or Trae Young?
Yeah, okay,
or would
I like that. If you had to start a team, would you take Luka or would you take Trae Young?
Right now I'm taking Luka.
Yeah, me too. And the reason I take Luka is just because of the size.
Yeah,
he's taller.
yeah,
you can just see over defenders. He can get the pass out, better
Yeah.
assist ratio and stuff like that. I think the problem with Trae is just I love Trae Young, and I've always been a supporter of him. Even when people were down on him in the draft, I was always like, dude, take Trae Young. He's going to hit 1,000,000 threes. It's going to be awesome. And so far, he's done that. So I think for sure that Trae Young is, I would take Luka in the end of the day, but I think for sure, Trae, you're good with either of them.
And the last game we want to talk about, Indiana and Toronto. And Toronto took this one 127-81.
Yeah. So just a quick note on this game. The Raptors' winning streak is over, but they've still been really effective. They're still 9-1 in their last 10. So it's unfortunate. I think they lost the winning streak to the Nets just before the All-Star break. But they've still been rolling, and the Raptors right there, 2nd seed, 42-15, which is way above their projected wins so far in the season.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people expected that from Toronto because you figure, you win the championship, you lose Kawhi, okay, time to rebuild. Nope, they're right there. With them, it's a reload, not a rebuild.
So the question with them now is, do they need Kawhi to get over that hump and get into the finals? And I don't know, honestly. I think they could potentially make it. I mean, if they got hot at the right time, they have such a talented roster of players that they could potentially beat the Bucks. I could see it.
Well, time will tell. And speaking of time, we're out of time for this segment, so we have to hit the break. And we'll be back to talk about the Western Conference in 2 minutes.
I'll be right back.
Hi. You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that?
Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
It's me, Artie. Come see what I collected from the Creative Galaxy in my idea box.
Transform your world.
Will you help me make art?
Before you throw it away,
Hey, I have an idea.
think outside the box.
Go be amazing!
Give your cardboard box another life. Recycle.
So now for the Western Conference, we have 3 games here that we want to highlight. First, the Kings and the Clippers, and Sacramento took this one 112 to 103.
Yeah, so for this game, De'Aaron Fox came out and played really well, 20 points, 8 assists, and 4 rebounds. Bogdan Bogdanovic with 20 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. And on the Clippers side, Kawhi continued his really good season with 31 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists. And Lou Williams with 24 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. So this game was a shock, and it's not... It kind of continues the Clippers season where they're in the 3rd seed, but before the season, I think that they were definite favorites to make the finals. So far, they've looked really good, but I wouldn't say they look like far and away the favorites to actually make the finals. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think right now a lot of people have, like I said in the East, Milwaukee and the Lakers. That's the way it's kind of been all year. But before the season started, everyone was thinking Lakers, Clippers, Lakers, Clippers. It's going to happen, it's going to happen. And I don't know anymore because the Nuggets, I knew the Nuggets were going to be good this year. They're putting together another nice season, 39-18.
Yeah.
They're in second.
Well,
and then you have the Rockets with their with their new small ball look. They're creeping up on them. And then Utah too.
You like the Nuggets? Because I feel like the Nuggets are another team like the Bucks where they're not necessarily, they haven't had a lot of success in the playoffs so far. They've had these good team records, and then when they get to the playoffs, they don't necessarily get the job done. So I think that's what people are seeing with the Nuggets when they're not rating them super highly. But I think that they could potentially do some damage in the playoffs. They're a really good team with Jokic and Jamal Murray.
Yeah, I think with those two, they have the experience now. I think that experience will go a long way.
Yeah.
And I think, one of these years, they got to get past that hump.
They got to break there. Yeah, maybe Jokic will stop eating churros before the season and I'll come in shape.
Well, he did say that he's lost weight.
Yeah.
So he's lost what, like
I love Jokic.
25 pounds?
He's a man. Yeah.
Like since the start of the year, right?
Yeah, no, I think he's like Shaq. He plays himself into shape over the course of the season.
Yeah, so.
And the question is, it's like teams that are good, they will occasionally drop. The Clippers have 19 losses right now. So they're going to occasionally drop games to teams that are less than good. But I feel like this just comes at like an unfortunate time for the Clippers where people are really questioning, like, is this team legit? They have so much depth and they're still not like the definitive best team in the league. For me personally, like, call me when the playoffs start. Like, when the playoffs start and you have healthy Kawhi and you have Paul George going out there, this team is going to be like insanely good on defense and offense, and I don't see how anybody's going to stop them.
Well, one of the teams that can stop them, the Lakers, they beat the Celtics 114 to 112. Bill Russell showed up to this game in a Kobe jersey.
Yeah, there's a clip of Bill Russell there on the VTR. This was a really good game, and it was a really good showing from both of the Jays, they call them, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, where Jason Tatum dropped 41 points for the first time ever and 5 rebounds and 2 assists, and Jaylen Brown with 26 and 2. So they fell short. They only fell short by 2 points, but for this like young Celtics team who's been impressive all season long, for them to just like keep rolling and go at the team with the second best record in the league, it was really impressive. And LeBron, of course, dominated with 29 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, and Davis with 32, 13, and 3. So that duo is still really effective, and Lakers are really good this year. Almost surprisingly good. It's weird, right? Like I didn't feel like people were.
I'm not surprised.
I didn't feel like people were talking about the Lakers like they were going to be like one of the best teams in the league. I feel like people were talking about the Clippers like much more than them. But
maybe, but the Lakers were still getting a lot of attention. I mean,
Yeah.
anytime you have LeBron, you're automatically going to be.
I feel like all their role players have just like really turned up and been really good this year. I mean, like you're getting like really like important minutes from like Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee and stuff like that. So it's nice to see guys like that maybe people didn't respect as much before the season really getting some good play time in them.
Now going back to the other side.
Oh wait. So one quick thing I want to talk about with the Lakers is they cut DeMarcus Cousins.
Oh, true.
Yeah, they cut him because of his meniscus tear that he suffered with the Warriors last year. And this is something that like is really crazy because DeMarcus Cousins was second team All-NBA as soon as 2016, and he was an All-Star in 2018. So you look at how much a meniscus tear can really hurt somebody, and going back to the Eastern Conference, you think about Kevin Durant, and you wonder, like I feel like DeMarcus Cousins, his whole career was cut so short so quickly from this injury that Kevin Durant has. And now Kyrie Irving's out with the shoulder surgery for the rest of the season, and you wonder if the Nets made the right gamble. So
I was just telling Meyer last week that Kyrie's one of the most inconsistent superstars between on and off the court issues. And a day after, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the news came out on Tuesday. I saw the report. I came out of class. Kyrie Irving done for the year. I was like, I just called that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Kyrie is done for the year, and obviously Kevin Durant's done for the year too.
Yeah, and now DeMarcus Cousins is done for the year. So it just goes to show how devastating of an injury that could be, that you could be a All-NBA player just 3 years ago, and now he's cut, and who knows if he'll be signed back into the league.
And the last game on our list here, Houston and Utah, the Rockets took this one 120 to 110.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Harden dropped 38 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 assists. Westbrook with 34 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. Donovan Mitchell on the other side with 31 points, 7 and 3. And Jordan Clarkson with 22, 7, and 1. So this is like, I feel like the Rockets' small ball thing is like seems to be really working right now. They absolutely like destroyed the Jazz with threes in this game. They had 20 to 7. And right now the Rockets are 7 and 3 in their last 10. So, there's a lot of questions about whether this like small ball lineup where PJ Tucker is your biggest player can really succeed in the NBA. But this is the best I've seen Harden and Westbrook mesh together this entire season. So I feel like they've been really effective since they started this the small Rockets team.
It's working now, but I'm still not buying it.
No?
No.
You don't like it?
No, you need that big presence down
4
low.
right now, 36 and 28.
Yes, it may help them to get into the playoffs, but I don't think it'll help them to move in the playoffs. I think I could see them losing first round.
Yeah.
If you don't have a big guy, I don't think you're going anywhere.
Well, I could see them losing first round. I mean, like traditionally, Harden hasn't been that great in the playoffs. So they don't really have much else besides Harden and Westbrook. I mean, they got a few guys, but Clint Capella's gone now. So.
Well, yeah, and think of it this way: in the regular season, it's obviously teams are still trying and you still go 100%, but it's not as intense as the playoffs are.
Yeah.
So once the playoffs start, you really go 110% and you really, get down to the fundamentals. And that's when the front court really helps you in the playoffs because, in the regular season, they might be able to make 23s because the defense is a little lax.
Yeah, well,
in the playoffs, it's going to tighten up, and you're going to have to feed it down low.
We saw what happened against Golden State when they shot, terribly from 3 in that Game 7, and they lost because of it. So you can't bank on these things forever, and sometimes you need the taller, stronger guys to get into the post. So, yeah.
So actually, that's interesting because if the playoffs were right now, it would be Houston and Utah.
Yeah.
4 and 5.
That's the matchup right there. Yeah, I wonder. Utah's looked pretty good this season.
I would go with Utah right now.
Yeah. They haven't looked amazing, but they've looked decent.
Because, they usually seem to turn it up too. Mm-hmm. But they're another team like Milwaukee and Denver. They typically don't go too far in the playoffs. So it's just their year. So, all right, that will do it for this week's show. A lot of NHL trades, 32 trades in 40 minutes. Well, actually, we saved some time for the rest of the game. So, a lot of trades and NBA. We're just getting back from the All-Star break, so a few games, but now we'll really get into the meat of the season as both leagues are going to make a huge playoff push here in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yes, thanks for coming on, Mac, and thanks for watching. We'll be back next week, same time, same place.